Mitzy Pearson here with the Handi Quilter Inspiration Squad. I've been hearing a lot of chatter on the internet people talking about floating a quilt on their 5-foot frame, the little foot frame. And so I'm here today to do a first run test just to see, is this possible? Does it really work? Can we load a quilt on this frame without basting? So I will gather my supplies together and be right back. So to float a quilt, this means that we're attaching the backing fabric as well as our batting to the frame. And then we're laying our quilt top onto the surface, and it's not going to be pre-pinned, it's not going to be spray basted with temporary spray adhesive. So as I was thinking about the best way to accomplish this, I decided for me, I would make sure that my backing is true and square, at least on the top edge, and also the batting. And just so that I can handle it a little easier, I also trued up the batting, and I added a few pins so that they'll stay together for me. Now I'm going to lay this over the frame, over the back bar, and attach it with a clamp to the center. So now that I have the backing and the batting pinned together, I'm just going to shake it out until I can see that everything is lining up parallel. And don't forget that your backing goes good side down. This quilt just happens to be smaller than my frame, so I think it's a pretty good one to test the float method on, certainly before moving up to a larger quilt. So typically I would just lay this over here to determine the center, and I'll take my center piece straight back and grab a clamp and just press it straight down. Now we'll just move over to the right, smooth this down, grab another clamp, press it straight down. Same thing on the other side. So right now is when you would want to make sure that your backing, since you have already squared it up, is pretty level, and you have the same amount behind each of these clamps. That looks pretty good. So we will just fluff the top and the batting, take a little peek underneath to make sure you don't have any folds or tucks. And it's very important to always use your side clamps. Love these things. So you just clamp and adjust your Velcro. Clamp and adjust your Velcro. Now, oh, have you noticed my little fan? My little Handi fan. It's so perfect for keeping me nice and cool while I'm busy quilting up a storm. So I use my little channel lock on my Avante because I don't have the electromagnetic channel locks or the Pro Stitcher on this machine. This allows me to sew either a horizontal or a vertical line with pretty good accuracy. So I'm just going to move my machine to the point where I'd like to start my horizontal stitching, and I'll attach the channel lock to the wheel. Can you see this? Okay. So that is going to keep my machine from moving forwards and backwards. I can only move horizontally. Now, if you push it too hard, you can go offline, but as long as when you start stitching, you're just slightly touching your machine, you're going to go nice and horizontal and parallel to your back bar. Okay, so I would go ahead and stitch a long stitch along this portion here, and then I'll take my quilt top and align it along that stitch. Because I'm barely touching the machine, I know that that line is going to be nice and straight. Now it's time for the quilt top. This is just a nice little simple strippy baby quilt. Thank you Rhonda Mills for this fabric. She decided that she wasn't going to use it and I found a nice use for it. Okay, I'm just going to lay the quilt or float the quilt right along the line that I just stitched. And I'm going to make sure that it's about the same distance from each side. So that I'll have a little extra over here and over there. Now once that's just placed along the basting line, now we're just going to straighten it out a little bit. Smooth it down. Okay, at this point, I haven't secured this edge yet, but I will in just a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and baste the top of the quilt, and then we'll secure this bottom edge, and then we'll baste the sides. Now don't forget, it's time to remove the channel lock. So take that off of the wheel and grab the top layer of your quilt and just give it a little float. Smooth it down. Make sure everything's nice and square. I always like to look at a seam line just to make sure that everything is going in the direction I'm expecting it to go. Now, just because we're going to say we're floating a quilt top doesn't mean that we're just going to leave this edge unsecured. I highly recommend, if you don't already have one or two of the gallery clamps, that you go ahead and invest in them. These things will keep all of these front layers nice and secure, and you just push it in, clamp it. They're really easy to use. And keeping all of this area smooth is going to make all of the difference in your final product. Now we're ready to baste the side edges and get to quilting. So we are going to pretend that I have already quilted this space and it's time to advance the quilt. All you do is remove your clamps. And proceed as if you were rolling any quilt, the ones that you have pin basted or the ones that you have spray basted. So now that we have the back part of our quilt rolled up, like we would always do, just grab the top, float it again, check underneath for any little threads, make sure that you're nice and straight. Attach your gallery clamps, couldn't live without these things. And baste and quilt away. So in my opinion, it does work to float a smaller quilt, one that will fit on the size of the frame. I've heard that some people are floating larger quilts, but in my opinion, there's a little bit of prep work to getting your quilt ready for quilting that affects the outcome, and a little extra effort might be worth it. Whether you are preparing your quilt for the little foot frame or whether you're preparing it for a long 12-foot frame, there's some work that goes into that. So with a larger quilt, for me personally, I would stick to spray basting, which has worked really great for me. It keeps all the layers together. You can move side to side. It's very little effort in the grand scheme of things when you think about all the time that you've spent piecing your beautiful quilt tops.